things were fairly smooth. Like, I wasn't tripping on the fact that he and I weren't talking, because I'm like, God's going to do it. I'm believing God. And so that's what my mindset was. I went there, I made friends, I served in ministry, and everything was fine. Things didn't get crazy until he introduced his now wife to the church.
Okay, so then when that happened, what did that do for you in your mind and in your spirit?
It was devastating.
Yeah.
It was devastating. Like, I can't articulate the pain that I felt in that moment, the confusion, the frustration, the whole idea of I came to a new city, gave up my life in Charlotte, and I blame God for it. Like, God, why did you allow this to happen to me?
Wow.
And so I went through all those emotions, but I still believed. It didn't matter. Like, on the one hand, you got the confusion, the frustration, but on the other hand, I still believe, because isn't this what we're taught? So we're taught to walk by faith and not by sight.
Now, Chanel. Mm-hmm. Now, most people who read the Bible, mm-hmm. there is a passage in there that says, he that findeth a wife.
Absolutely.
Findeth a good thing,
right.
and gets favor with the Lord. I might be,
No, that's right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in your mind, were you thinking like, he's going to find me in this situation? Or
in my mind, I put myself in position. Like I said, I wasn't calling him. I wasn't, I wasn't putting myself in his space per se, because church is large.
So he never knew that you even really were interested in him.
Well, I mean, because remember, I spent the night at his house.
Right, you spent the night. But y'all didn't have sex.
No, we kissed.
You kissed.
On a truth or dare challenge.
Yeah.
And he asked me, like, one of the questions he asked me that night at his house was, he was like, what's one of the things that you guys talked about on your way here? And so I'm looking at him like, and so I said, I just was, interested in getting to know you. That's what I said.
Okay.
So I never said this is what I believe, because I was still kind of like, I believed it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I responded to him. But absolutely, I believe that scripture. So I wasn't actively pursuing him, but I did put myself in position for sure.
I mean, you uprooted your life.
I did.
Yeah. So when was it how long were you there that he introduced his current wife?
Just shy of a year.
So you were there a year, mm-hmm. and then he introduces her one day at church, mm-hmm. and you're like totally blindsided by this?
Well, prior to him introducing her, because I served on the marketing team, they used to make jokes like Bishop got a girlfriend. And so I would just be listening. Like, I didn't entertain the conversation, but I'm listening. I'm like, no, in my mind, no, he don't. This is my mind. No, he don't have a girlfriend. But they would talk about it and chat, and I'm just listening. And because I guess she had started to come visit, because she didn't live in Nashville. She lived somewhere else. And so they would talk about it, and I would just listen. And so he didn't, because she didn't live there, she wasn't at church, every Sunday. Yeah. But then she started coming to church, and then he announced it, that this was someone special, and went through her whole, she's an extraordinary person. She went here in terms of her education, her pedigree. And then that's how it happened. And the weird thing about that is, when he made this announcement, there was a lady sitting in front of me. This lady turned around and looked at me and said, she looks like you. I said, what? This is what she said, just out the blue. The lady turns around and says, now this lady don't know what I'm believing.
Yeah.
She just turns around, because I'm there every Sunday. I got my little suit on. And I'm 6'1" with no shoes on.
I mean, yeah,
so people know I'm in the room.
Glamazon.
Yeah, they know I'm in the room.
Yeah.
So she looked at me and said, she looks like you. And I said, wow, God, this is crazy. So yeah, that's what happened.
I mean, during this time of this 8 years, because she's introduced a year after mm-hmm. you've been in the church, yes. but you stay committed to the ministry mm-hmm. and serving in this ministry mm-hmm. for a number of years.
Because in that moment, my thought process was this: I'm not here. Like, I believe that this man is my husband, but God, I'm here for you. I'm like, so regardless of whether you do it or not, I'm not here for a man. Right? The thing that hurt me, I think, more than anything, it wasn't about a man. It was about, I uprooted my whole life.
Yeah.
I lost all these things, so, and then that situation happened. So all of that put together just made for a disaster. And so I wanted to prove to God that I'm not here for him. Like, if you don't do it, I'm still here for you. I'm still committed to serving you. And so I stayed.
So where was the shift that happened? Because in the interview, you talked about when you shared the story that, you know, things had gotten really bad for you financially.
Really bad.
You ended up losing your place to live and your car.
Well, what happened was my lease, so he married her.
Yeah.
Okay? And so after he married her, a few months after, I lost my job. And then my lease expired on my apartment, so I left. And I went home to Jersey. And I stayed there for 3 months, but I'm like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. Like, I hadn't been here since before college.
Yeah.
So I knew that wasn't home for me. And so I had mentored some young girls prior to leaving. I'm like, hey, can I come crash with you for 2 weeks? Because I don't know. I used to be a flight attendant many years ago, so I know how to navigate and move in different spaces. So I knew if I just get back down there, get back to work, you know, everything would be fine. But when I got back down there, I felt like God was saying, I want you to serve in this season. So I didn't go right back to work. So what was supposed to be a 2-week stay ended up being a 15-month stay.
And you were living in your mentee's dorm.
Well, I was living, initially, I stayed with her for a couple of weeks, but then in the RA, I don't know what you call the director of the RAs, but so Nashville is, it's a decent sized city, but everybody goes to this church.
Yeah.
And so because they knew, you know, I went to this church, I serve in ministry, the lady who was over the RAs, she gave the okay for me to stay there a couple of weeks. Well, there was a certain scenario that didn't involve me where another student tried to, you know, throw this lady under the bus. And so they said I had to leave. And so I left from her place and they put me in an apartment on the campus.
Wow.
So I wasn't with her, but I was, you know, they were responsible. They were moving me around. They was navigating, you know, they was creating space. If there was like an empty room, they would allow me to stay in that space.
I mean, this is happening when you're in your late 30s at this point.
At this point, it was 2010. So, yeah. So how is that? 2010. I was 33. So this was 36.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. At what point did you stop blaming God and then start to examine the part that you played into?
I didn't stop blaming God for a while. It was some years. So at the time, like, this is the thing, and even today, I'm a radical Christian. Like, I'm going to take the risk. If anybody's going to take the risk, if anybody's going to take the gamble, it's going to be me. And so I was willing to go through, you know, what I needed to go through. I was like, Lord, if this is what I got to go through to get what I want, then I'm willing to do just that. And so that was my mindset, right? So a lot of what I went through, while it was hurtful, it was painful, I was willing to endure it because that's just how bad I wanted it. And it wasn't so much centered on this man, more so than it was on the idea of just wanting to be married.
You said you had an unhealthy...
It was an unbridled desire to be married.
To have a husband.
Have a husband. And it just wasn't directed towards him. He just happened to be the object of my affection at that time. But I just had a desire to be married. All my friends had gotten married or either had children, and I had neither. And so I really wanted this. And I really believed it. And the thing about it is, because I was in the Word, God was speaking, but he wasn't speaking to that. He was speaking, but it wasn't to that. It wasn't to that. And I mean, I can admit that he was speaking because I was serving and, you know, achieving a certain level of success, even in ministry, looking like hell. You know, we had a magazine there, and I had just got my MBA, and I went out into the community, and I raised about $30,000 for the church, you know, and selling the magazine ads. I wrote for the magazine. I edited for the magazine. And so these are all the things that I do for my own business today. But he was speaking, he was preparing me for purpose. It just wasn't for this man. And that's where I got it mixed up. So after I came back and I was serving, well, things got bad because I didn't have an income. So I lost my car, you know, after a couple months of being there. I couldn't afford to take care of myself. I couldn't afford to eat. I mean, I was looking like death.
You said you were eating mustard.
I had mustard for dinner one time. Yeah, for sure. I had mustard. We didn't have food. This young lady, she struggled with me, and she shouldn't have had to do that.
Shout out to Jasmine.
Yeah, everybody shout out to Jasmine.
Shout out to Jasmine.
Yeah, Jasmine, she was a trooper. I had mentored the girls prior to me going through what I went through, and I would take them out to eat and teach them etiquette, and we would talk about different things. And so they really looked up to me, but I was not a mentor. And I be the first one to say I was not a mentor to her in that moment, but she stuck beside me. She really did.
Hey, Vault family, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this clip, make sure to check out our full interview on our channel at Vault Empowers Talks. We don't just scratch the surface. We dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most influential leaders and change makers. Don't forget to like, to comment, and be sure to subscribe for more inspiring conversations. See you next time.